mean, I can find it, I just don't know.
They're just stepping into control of the schools.
Well, then they don't want to get, then they don't want to give you any more.
That's interesting. Okay.
That decision.
You give me the data, I found a little more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna continue now. I hope the sound is better for
Sure.
those out in Facebook.
I'll save it.
If not, sorry, we have technical difficulties from time to time. Okay, so you were saying on the financial summary, Dr. Kuhn.
I was just finishing up the end of the month balances and just my explanation of just some of the things considering as we move forward. The last thing there was just wanted to show you the education operation fund transfers. Again, that's another requirement that we cannot transfer more than 15% of our education fund revenues into our operations fund, but we have to transfer dollars to help with the costs that had moved from the old general fund to the operation fund. But anyway, right now we're transferring 12.3.9%, which in comparison last year was overall, the whole year was 12.4%. But just so that you understand, that 12.4% does mean we're not fully funding some of those costs in the operation fund. Because there's an $89,000 deficit. For us to actually cover every cost that we would normally cover, if you go to the next slide, that would be more along the lines of 13.5% to do that. We're still in good shape with all that. We are going to increase our balance transfer. We were doing $155,000 a month. We are going to increase it to $160,000 a month. Which is all allowed in that resolution that we passed back in January as far as our transfers are concerned.
When I reviewed this, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the coverage in operations is coming out of CPF, right? Just a little bit. Somehow.
Just a little bit. Some of that, they used to allow us to cover some of our utility costs out of there. And so there was a certain percentage that they allowed us to do that with. So I carry that over as part of that amount, which I think was like 28,000
that small
a month. Yeah.
Because I just wondered if we wanted to say CPF dollars, that would push that higher than the 12 something.
Our operational fund is pretty strong. I mean, we're in pretty good shape. I'm not too worried about the 12% right now. Obviously, that can vary from year to year just by the increases in costs plus whatever happens to our revenue. So like we could be expending the same amount of dollars, but if our revenue declined in our education fund, it's going to be a higher percentage anyway. So it's just balancing that out. But I just wanted to show you that we're well within our 15% transfer requirement.
There is a hint. I just have to state it. There's a hint of state control drifting down here. And they say 15% here, 40%
Yep.
on the, whatever that number was for the education dollars.
Yeah.
So,
That's exactly true. Basically too, when this was all changed from the two accounts with education and operation,
There was going to be no there's going to be no cutoffs. Like it was, you could just do it. You could just transfer money as you needed, and
then it started changing again. And then of course, the new updates as far as that. You're exactly right.
So that's my summary then, as far as financials, current financials are concerned. And then I think do we just move on?
Yeah, might as well just jump on to the budget review then.
The budget review. So
You guys can read that, can't you?
We'll start, then I'm starting to work on our budget for 2022. And so when you're working on your next year's budget, you're really working on an 18-month budget, not a 12-month budget. So the budget really entails the last 6 months here of 2021 and then use that information to go into the next 12 months for 2022. And so I just kind of like to break it out in chunks so that we don't, don't throw it all at you at once. And then I just usually start with the simple stuff. Mike, you can keep going. This has to do with all the transfer stuff. So, budget estimates. So we report these figures to the DLGF, and then once we approve all of these and accept all of these, we submit it, and then the DLGF determines whether or not our revenues are going to be enough to fund our budget, and then they make the adjustments to our appropriations, and then we have to go back and adjust what we anticipated or advertised in our budget. So this first one here, I believe, is our debt service budget. So it reflects all of our bonds, lease bonds and geo bonds that we currently have. So we always anticipated the possibility of a tax anticipation warrant, which is just borrowing money if we felt like we had cash flow issues. We haven't had to do that in a long time, but we were always allowed to, put a little bit of a dollar amount in there to help cover the cost of the interest. But that is no longer allowed. You have to pass the tax anticipated warrant beforehand before you can apply that to your debt service. So that's why there's a zero there, but we don't, like I said, we haven't had to worry about that in a while. And then the current debt that we have out is the 2016, the 2011, and the 2016. And then we just have the new bond that we established in June, the 2021 GEO bond. The 2016 bond expires at the end of this year, so that's why there's a zero payment in there. We won't need to have any debt service for that next year because that will be paid off at the end of this year. The GEO bond, the new bond, there is no payments there. I should say there are payments next year, but they're only capitalized interest payments that will actually come directly out of the bond. So we don't have to ask for any debt help with that for 2021, but in 2022, then we'll have to ask for the principal amount to cover that bond. And then the 2019 and 2011 shows there then what's remaining. That will be the final amount then for those two bonds because those will finish up at the end of 2022. And so those are broken down by principal and interest for those three bonds. And then textbook rental, that's the amount of money that we did not receive back back from the state. And so we are allowed to include that into our debt service to recover the money that we did not get back from the state on our free students of free textbooks.
Question.
Yes.
Why the shortfall from that?
So the state only appropriates so much. So when we request our amount of money and all the other schools request their amount of money, if it goes over that appropriation, then they divide it up amongst the state. And so I don't remember what the exact percentage was, but I think we only got 82% back of what we requested. And so that tends to happen every year. It's just they don't have enough money appropriated to pay everybody back what they're asking for. So that shortfall then is what we're allowed to take out of debt service.
Debt free in December 2022 then.
Debt free December, well, no, because we had the new GEO bond, which goes out to 2023. Did you say 2023? Yes.
No, I said
22, yeah.
With the principal payment due in 2023,
Yes, for that last bond.
which isn't that large.
No. And we didn't really talk much about the new bond we got, but we had 1% interest on it, so we're paying about $20,000 in interest, so pretty good return. Then rainy day, we don't do a lot with rainy day. Obviously, we just kind of keep it for a rainy day. But, you know, one of our goals was to decrease that self-insurance fund to zero and get a balance of $1 million, which we have accomplished that. And so we still have to set a budget for it. So typically in our budget, we allocate stipends in there. We allocate health insurance in case we were ever to do like a retirement bridge or anything like that. We put in some consulting services, some marketing communications, because that's where we used to kind of pay that out of before we budgeted that into Laura's budget. And then if we wanted to do any type of transfers, we left a little bit of room for that as well. So just kind of recommending about a budget of $900,000. Typically we don't spend it because it's just there, but we need to have some allocations for that in case we needed to use it, so that we don't have to go through the process again. So those were the two funds there. We'll get into operations and education fund in the next couple board meetings, and then that will lead us into then our budget hearing and then our budget adoption, which will be separate board meetings as well. I'd like to try to get all that done in September-ish, because we do have deadlines that we have to meet from the DLGF to get those things submitted in certain time frames. So
Just for information purposes at this time.
Okay. Going to move on to personnel. And warn you that, as is tradition in the summer months, this list gets lengthy. Tonight's is no exception. So here we go. Under resignation, we have Monica Carey, cook at Southwood High School. Kaylin Sorrell, speech language pathologist at WMAP. JT Biggs, counselor at White's. Kenneth Working, summer custodian for all the schools. Shelby Grump, paraprofessional, Sharp Creek Elementary. Sam Kiefaber, English teacher at Northfield High School. And Gordon McClure, third grade teacher at Sharp Creek Elementary. Under employment, Christina Stephanatis, Dean of Students at Southwood Elementary, to be paid out of ESSER. Chloe Plyler, social worker at Metro North Elementary, also to be paid out of ESSER. Tabitha Klein, sixth grade teacher at Southwood Elementary. Mary Norman, sixth grade teacher at Southwood Elementary. Kelly Bear, second grade teacher at Southwood Elementary. Todd Law, guidance counselor, Wabash, at White's High School. Got a lot ahead of myself there. No, we still don't do anything for Wabash for their guiding or their hiring. Tricia Ekman, paraprofessional at Southwood Elementary. Matthew Johnston, choral director at Northfield at Sharp Creek. Catherine Davis, paraprofessional at Southwood Elementary. Teresa Coe, paraprofessional at Sharp Creek Elementary. Tammy Sloan, paraprofessional at Sharp Creek Elementary, to be paid out of ESSER. Sarah Adderman, paraprofessional, Sharp Creek Elementary. Elizabeth Clock, math teacher at Southwood High School. Amy Long, secretary/nurse at Southwood High School. Christian Peterson, social worker at White's High School, to be paid out of ESSER. And Timothy Calloway, ag teacher at Southwood High School. Under retirement, we have Rick Brewer, social studies teacher and Northfield High School coach. For leave, we have number 125, and you see the dates there for that leave. Under transfers, Michaela Meyer, transferring from Southwood High School teacher to Northfield High School teacher, effective at the beginning of the school year. Lindsay Nee, transferring from Northfield High School choral teacher to Southwood High School band and choral teacher. Stephanie Height, transferring from special education paraprofessional to Title I paraprofessional at Southwood Elementary. Chrissy Cunningham transferring from special education paraprofessional to Title I paraprofessional at Southwood Elementary. Abby Siders transferring from Southwood High School cook to Southwood Elementary paraprofessional for the 3-year-old preschool. And Kristen McCourt transferring from Southwood High School 3-hour cook to Northfield High School 4-hour cook.
Actually, we just got an email today that she was not gonna be transferring.
Kristen,
Yes.
okay, so disregard that. And so does that leave us with an opening then at Northfield, so we'll still need to be filling that then?
And just to give you some, if I can talk on a few of these resignations, some of our teachers, our counselors, JT Biggs, living in Fort Wayne, got a position in Huntington closer to home. Wish him well. He's done a great job at White's. And then Sam Kiefaber is moving to, I believe, Washington, D.C. So it'd be a long commute to come back there. Courtney McClure is kind of going with her husband. Her husband is the new principal at Oak Hill High School. And so she'll be teaching at Oak Hill in elementary there. So wish her well. They want to be together, being this first time ever in the same corporation together. Employment. And then Rick Brewer, wish him well in his retirement. And then, of course, you saw the transfers. Interesting, actually, Lindsay came to us to talk about the possibility. She originally was band, but she did the choir at Northfield and Sharp Creek, and she was interested in to doing both, and she's the one that came to us when we had that opening with both Chris Hickman and also Susan Kiefer, as far as halftime people that retired. So that's kind of an interesting thing that she's taking on. It'll be neat that she can do both. And I don't know, guys, if there's anything else I need to mention there, but I don't think so. No. So we're happy to have the new people and wish the other ones well.
Move to approve HR.
Second.
Motion and second to approve HR is read. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Heartland Career Center report.
We just had a short meeting a couple weeks ago, just paid the bills mostly. And the only thing of importance, we gave the director a status quo contract. You know, keep him on until we figure out what we're gonna pay the rest of the teachers and so on. So that was basically it. It's a short meeting.
Superintendent's report, Mr. Kiefaber.
Yep, just have a few things. First of all, this is the data that we're given through Becky Bradley with the meals served so far in 5 weeks. There's been 13,140, and you can see the breakdown there as far as the breakfast and lunch at both Northwood and Southwood. So they continue to do a lot of work there, and that runs through July. So we appreciate those people working in the summertime. Also, just want to mention Jeanette Moore and Tanya Boone are actually working together with the summer school, which is concluded in June, but Jeanette doing the summer for elementary and Tanya for the secondary. So there's some statistics, it's kind of interesting, 220 students. This is elementary, 564,780 minutes of enrichment and instruction over 18 days. And some of them were included in the Minds in Action. 47 students participate in Spark, which allowed this instruction to occur in their home school, and then offered enrichment during the afternoon with the YMCA. And of course, a big thing with those third grade students that had to retake the iRead test, 14 out of 17 students received a passing score, so that's fantastic. I don't know, Mr. Boone, since you're here, if you want to mention anything else about that, but I know your students did well.
Yeah, as far as IREAD goes, we went from, I think, 89% in March up to 94, with 3 or 4 more students passing. And didn't have to talk about retentions in third grade, so super proud of all those kiddos. And I always, have told people in the past, it's kind of lonely in the building in June, pretty quiet. But so it was good to have, 60 or so extra bodies most of that time. So good, thankful for the opportunity that we had to do that, and I think it was good for our students, and no, it was a good experience. So.
And speaking of, I know Mr. Drake, not this meeting, we'll talk more about some other testing, but even with iRead though, our scores are down just slightly, but being a COVID year and all those different things, the percentages are really, really good. So not really any big change at all, pretty much in line with other years. And actually, might have been, was it higher in some of the years?
Maybe a couple, this one was higher.
Yeah, so really, I guess I could say it's pretty close to all those other years, so I don't have it right in front of me, but that's excellent, especially for this year too. And Mrs. Moore also just mentioned the Minds in Action team has already started planning for the 2022 summer. They outlined a K through 12 or K through 2 program for a 3-day event, and then for the 3 through 6, a 7-day program. And that's, I know Dr. Kuhn, when he started talking about this, and then basically handed a lot of that over, but started the conversation, we'd start pretty small and then just increase it as we go. So probably every year will be a little bit different. I am just going to mention this. We will be talking about the reentry plan at the last agenda item, but I just put this in for our information as far as how our county, this is Wabash County positivity rate. I wish, like I said this before, I would have started this more in October, November, as far as tracking all that, because you can't really go back in time. I talked to the state, if I could do that, I would have, but they said there's not any way to do the same exact figures, which I don't know why we can't do that, but maybe there's a way that the person I talked to maybe is the wrong person. But anyway, you can see where we started in December, and then it's been very, very good. All the way we've been blue. We started in blue in March, hit a little hiccup there in March, or the end of March and the 1st of April, but then been blue for a lot of weeks and still anticipate the same. So that would be part of the reason why we continue the discussion that we have for our reentry plan coming up in a little bit. So that's all I have for now though.
Okay. Curriculum and instruction report, Mr. Drake.
Yeah, I can share those iRead scores. I feel like our district pass rate, unofficial, we did more officially from the state, was 92.6%. Last year we were at 93.7%, and the year before we were at 91.5%. So right in line with what you expect. And so for us and the hard work our staff did, especially the 3rd grade teachers, but really everybody, I think we can be proud of where we were in that. So it's always interesting to see how we compare to others. They haven't released iRead data across the state, and so right now we don't know that. So, but I feel like that's pretty good. We have staff members going through trainings. We've sent some last month to Indianapolis. We've got some doing some online training now, and we are working on our July professional development towards the end of the month. And so I know people have the conception that teachers take all summer off, but most of our staff are doing some kind of training one or another. So that's probably the most important thing going on in the curriculum.
All right, move on to new business. Recommendation to keep the 2021-2022 meal prices the same as the 2020-2021, except for the adjustment to adult meal prices, which you're going to speak to that.
Oh, I am. So we don't anticipate any meal price changes from the student side at this point in time. We are going to continue to offer free meals for next school year. At one point, that was the only option that schools had, but then just recently they are allowing schools to go back to starting to charge families for their meals. We're going to try it out for another year, see how it goes. There were probably, the reimbursement is good, but we probably took some hits when it came to things like a la carte, because not so many, if they're eating the free lunches, they're not buying the a la carte line. So that did have a little bit of an impact on our food service or our food balances. But our food balances right now are still in pretty good shape. So we felt like it's a good opportunity to continue to offer that again for another year with the free regular meals. Any extra stuff that they buy or purchase, they have to purchase. They can't get everything free. It's just the regular meals, breakfast and lunch would be free. And then adults have always had to pay, and then just some of the changes in some of the costs and some of the food prices. The state recommended that we increase some of our adult meal prices. So that is our recommendation, and as far as the prices are concerned.
I move to the recommendation.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the recommendation to keep the meal prices the same for upcoming school year as they were last. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Recommendation to salvage activity bus A3 and sell to Heartland Career Center.
Yeah, we can kind of talk about both number 2 and number 3 here together. We just completed our bus inspections, and we passed with flying colors. Our bus drivers and Kyle do an excellent job of keeping our buses well maintained, so that they are in good shape and they can last us for as long as possible. I don't know if many of you know this, but we average just roughly 1,800 miles a day on the road when we're in school. And so that's a lot of miles that we're putting on our fleet. And so they just do, I just can't say they do an excellent job of taking care of their buses, and Kyle does an excellent job of making sure that that gets done and repairing things when they need fixed. With that being said, though, every year we usually end up taking some off of our fleet. And so those buses would include A3, which is an activity bus, and then bus 2 and 19, which are our regular yellow buses. And typically we salvage those buses so then that we can get rid of them at an auction. Well, Heartland had came to us because they were in need of an activity bus, and they had been out looking for some activity buses. They took a look at bus A3, had it inspected, felt like they could get work done on it so that it would be able to continue, and they were willing to do that work on that and pay for our bus, which would probably be cheaper for them in the long run for looking for a different bus. So we're recommending that we would sell that bus to Heartland Career Center, the activity bus, and then the other 2 buses, we would do what we normally do and take those to auction.
Okay, I will take a motion for both number 2 and number 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to salvage the activity bus A3 and yellow buses 2 and 19. Motion and second for those, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Recommendation to approve the MSD and WMAP employee salary schedule and benefit handbook changes.
So we review those every year. I'm not going to go through each of those booklets, but I did give you a little snapshot of what those recommendation updates are going to be. We added the 3-year-old CDA position into that handbook as part of the classroom instructor salary and benefit schedule. And then looking at our health insurance, our contribution to our full-time classified positions is at $5,200. To meet federal poverty level affordability guidelines, we need to increase our contribution. And so our recommendation is to increase that from $5,200 to $5,800. We probably only have about 10 to 12 full-time classified positions that take that insurance. So it's not going to be very much money to increase that. But we do need to do that so that it can meet those guidelines. And then from the area program standpoint, they kind of have their own board, but we kind of pass things through us since we are the LEA. But their board had recommended increasing annuity contributions to their director and assistant director, $500 more per year. And then with the resignation of Sandra Harness, They would like to change her position into more of a data financial specialist position, which really just increases the number of days from 210 to 249. They're still working out a little bit of a salary adjustment to that. Don't know that number yet, but once they let us know, we can put that in there. But they're just looking ahead to the future as far as some retirements and some consolidating of some positions when those retirements happen and getting people trained. And so they felt like that was a good time to make that adjustment with her leaving. And so they're recommending they change that position title and days and pay. So those are the only updates to the employee handbook at this time.
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
I moved that.
Motion and second to approve the MSD and WMAP employee salary benefit handbook changes. All in favor, say aye. Recommendation to approve the teacher evaluation plan for 2021.
As mentioned, the plan was changed significantly from last year because the state actually changed as far as how you include like a school grade. So school grades are no longer part of that evaluation process. And so for this year, the only change is one number, and that's the one. Instead of a July 2020, it's July 2021. Did share this again with the Teachers Association. They agreed with it. And so by Indiana code, we also have to give this to the DOE, and the board has to approve the plan. So it is no different than last year other than the date. If you have any questions, but it's all in here as far as what we do, as far as the highly effective, and how many evaluations that we have, when they're done, and situations like that.
Do you think they'll put the school grade back in there in the future or
Well, in this actual, who knows? I don't think so, but you know, they'll have different people come in, a new governor, a new department that can change, because obviously now it's appointed position instead of an elected position for the it's the Secretary of Education now instead of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. So
I'll move to approve the change, I guess, the change in teacher evaluation.
Recommendation approve the teacher and evaluation plan as a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Recommendation to approve the reentry plan for 2021-2022.
all right. Well, if you recall last year, this plan that looked really pretty, there were a lot of pages to it last year. And and I'll just go some history here. In June of 23rd, you suspended some of the school board policies as per the whole COVID situation. You had an athletic reentry plan that was approved on 6/23. On 7/14, you had the first reentry plan. It was revised. The second meeting, 7/28. August 11th, it was revised again. And then the event management plan was also approved on 8/11. Additional leave resolution was adopted on January the 12th, and then that was rescinded, changed a little bit on 1/26. So you had a lot of things going on last year. Of course, those are changes that were given to us that we followed. And so for this year, the reentry plan, basically the Executive Order 2115 states in part, and it's up there on the screen too, as of July 1, 2021, local school boards and or the relevant governing bodies of all public and private K through 12 educational institutions will be responsible for implementing whatever measures and restrictions deemed necessary and prudent to address the impact and spread of COVID-19 for the buildings, facilities, and grounds, to include transportation. So MSD of Wabash County will return to pre-pandemic standard operational practices that follow school board policy and student handbook guidelines concerning the health and safety of our students, staff, and school community. We will not require masks for the upcoming school year. The goal is to have no restrictions for students and staff when school resumes in August. We will continue to monitor local, state, and federal guidance to determine if any revisions to this plan are needed. There's a little bit more verbiage at the beginning of that, but that's just some history that I mentioned. So that is really your information that is relevant, and you have the responsibility of implementing whatever measures and restrictions deemed necessary and prudent.
For public clarification, then no mask on buses.
Yeah, right now it's no, yes.
I move to approve the reentry plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the recommendation for the reentry plan for 2021, 2022 to get rid of masks. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right. We have no unfinished business, no board policy, any public comment for any item, not just agenda item.
Thank you for that policy. I do have a question on teachers when you were back on evaluation. Is the corporation allowed, and if so, do they monitor teachers who really spout their political views and the kids are afraid, high school kids are afraid to write a paper or discuss in class their opinions because it disagrees with the teachers? Is there any way that can be monitored and stopped? Because it's happening. In both high schools, it's happening. How do we stop that? Because we've got some really intelligent kids out there that need to be able to express their opinion, even if it's not the same as that teacher's.
Yeah, well, the first item is that the student, if they feel that way, they need to go to the teacher, ask them a question. If they're not satisfied with that, they need to go to the administrator and then keep going to the chain. So a lot of times, when you say stopping that, you have to know about that information. You say you have that information. If we don't have that information, then it can never be addressed. So they have to bring it up.
But you have to understand from that student standpoint that they're obviously afraid, because not only if they voice their opinion and it differs from the teacher, but if they go to the administrators and complain, then.
Yeah, but here again, if we don't know about it, then it can't be addressed.
I know, but it's. So
I don't know how you address something that you don't know about in which particular person or people that are teachers or whatever. So it does make it difficult, because if we don't know, you can't address it. So it has to be, and I understand what you're saying.
I guess I would say that teachers need to be really reminded and encouraged that their opinions are not taught in the classroom. And I don't care if it's conservative or liberal or either one, but I had one of my ex-teachers, an MSD teacher, we were talking about it and he said, well, you probably knew what my political views were. And I'm like, I didn't have any idea. I had no idea how you would have voted or that's the way it should be. The classroom is not the place for that teacher to espouse their political opinions.
And I think that's true. I know that I've had the conversation with our new principal at Northwood. He's right on line with what you're saying, and I know that he's, looking at that, because that's not what they're paid to do. That's why they end up going to college. They get it there.
I was going to kind of say this for label instead in the board, since Sherry kind of opened the door here. I've been involved in this thing for a long time here. And our title is basically trustees of MSD Wabash County. Trustee means the trust of the people to do what's right for not only taxes, but the education of our kids. And I've been convicted lately, personally, that I've always been focusing on the financial end of it. We're doing fantastic there. But as you hear more and more stuff being pushed through the pipeline, the teachers union wanting to support even legal representation for teachers that want to back critical race theory, and even Project 1619, which critical race theory, as you know, is just a critical theory is a Marxist. Karl Marx developed critical theory way back, which basically say you have two groups of people, oppressed people and oppressors. We stand up here every board meeting and we pledge allegiance one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I don't know how we go about it, Tim, but as far as a trustee being elected, we need to be more of a watchdog in this area, because we have a small slice of the world that we're able to influence, and I'm responsible for that small slice. And we're going to teach truth and fact. And this is a great country. People need to get on an airplane and go someplace if they don't believe that. Because I've been fortunate to travel enough in my life to know this is the best place on the planet. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Kevin.
Any other questions? Do we have any coming in from Facebook?
We had, Jody Chenoweth says, thank you for the approval on this policy. I'm assuming that's the mass reentry policy. And Mitch Meyer, I commend you for returning to normal.
So that did change then, I could hear that?
Evidently, yeah, with rebooting.
Good.
Good, Chris.
Chris is the man.
You didn't want to pause it, but we got it.
Mortgage from on top.
Yeah. We could save money if we just make him, we just add the IT director job.
Is that his job title?
We don't want anything to crash.
Yeah, I don't think I can fix that.
Any other public comments or questions? Items from board members, Kevin's already spoken up, so I guess anybody else, unless you have something more you want to add to that. It'd be hard to, because you said it eloquently. Anybody else have any for the board?
Yeah.
We're adjourned then.